want to talk about taking awesome, hands-free fireworks photos. Before we get to the hands-free part of this stuff, let's just real quick recap some general fireworks photography tips. You need a tripod, and I'll put my recommended tripod and other gear that we're talking about in a link right down below this video. And you do want some way to remotely trigger the camera. Now, this can be a little bulb clicker. This can be some type of remote intervalometer, and we'll talk more about that in a second and why you may or may not need that. Or you could use Wi-Fi and one of the apps that communicates to your camera as well. You also want to shoot at a slightly wider focal length. I really hate cutting off any part of the fireworks, especially the tops. So I tend to shoot a little bit wider, give myself room to crop later, making sure that I'll capture even the tallest or the highest altitude fireworks that are shot off during the show. If that lens has image stabilization, you want to turn that off as well. Now, for settings, I like manual mode. Any other mode, the camera's going to be very confused trying to figure out what settings it should, as one moment it's very dark as there's nothing in the sky, and the next moment it's brilliant, almost daylight. So I typically shoot around f8 for my aperture, ISO 100 to 200, and my shutter speed somewhere between 4 to 6 seconds. Those are my general settings, and depending on how active the show is, whether or not they're throwing up one burst at a time or they're throwing up multiple, like at the very end, the grand finale, I may shorten that a little bit. But 4 to 6 seconds is usually a nice spot. And again, if you have it set on a tripod and are not moving it all during the show, this is another benefit of using a tripod, you can easily stack multiple images after the fact without a whole lot of work. And of course, you want to manually focus. Again, most of the places that I've been to photograph fireworks, you need to get there fairly early before it really is dark to kind of have your little picnic, have your fun, be set up. And during that time, you can get focus at the base where they're going to shoot the fireworks off from, then switch to manual focus so your camera isn't trying to refocus during the night at all. That'll be another thing that really throws it through a loop and you'll get a lot of blurry shots. Now, let's talk about the hands-free portion. So I mentioned intervalometers. Well, a lot of us don't even need that these days. If you've got one of these newfangled cameras, like the Canon 80D, or it doesn't even have to be that new from the Nikons, they've had this for a while. Built into these cameras are interval timers. So you can set up and get X number of shots every X number of seconds. You don't have to do a whole lot of thinking about this. All you need to really do is set your interval at a second. And basically, that is going to instantly take a new shot after the first one is done. And you can tell it to do 15, you can tell it to do unlimited, so until the show is over. And this is really nice because there are those times where you've gone places with friends or family, I'm sure, and you take along your camera and you really get focused in on taking the picture and you kind of miss the experience, especially if you're doing it with family and kids and you don't get to sit there and go ooh and ah as much. You're worried about that next shot, what your settings are. So I really recommend this, especially if you're going out shooting with kids, because it allows you kind of set up, forget the camera, enjoy the show, and it's going to do all of the work. So you take all of those settings that I just suggested, you plug them into the camera, you turn the intervalometer on, and again, as I said, set it for just 1 second gaps, and then just let it sit there and fire constant shot after constant shot. Now again, as I said, you might want to stop at some point during the show and experiment with slightly different settings, but then let it run again. And as you get closer to what you might consider the grand finale, you could of course shorten that shorten the exposure and then start it up again with that same 1 second interval so that it's basically taking a new picture right away. A quick tip, if you do use the embedded interval, on any camera, make sure that it is going to save the files for you because the Sonys will save it to a video. And that might be interesting, but that is going to be over so fast because it's going to be running 24 frames a second. You might get a couple of seconds from the fireworks show. So you really do want to make sure it is saving images, and you want to save raw images. The camera should have no problems writing those when you have a 4 to 6 second shot to shot. That's it. That's how you can take hands-free fireworks shots. Now you say, wait, I don't have one of these newfangled cameras, or one of the Nikons that's been doing it forever. What can you do? Well, I mentioned you can get the intervalometers. There's lots of them. They're cheap. They're on Amazon for 20 bucks. Another option that I love because it gives you so many available options is the Trigger Trap dongle and app. So I'll put that as a link right down below. That uses your smartphone as the intervalometer. You plug it in, set it all up, and let it run. That also does star trails. I've talked about that in that video that I've made as well. I'll link that at the end. And that's it. Those are the things I recommend. Again, if you're looking for any links, they're right down below. If you appreciated this video, give it a quick thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber, hit subscribe and stay tuned. I'm going to throw up my older how to get nice light trails from sparklers right at the end of this video. Thanks for watching.
Here we're talking specifically about working with sparklers. We're going to be shooting some photos with sparklers. This is very similar to my waterfall photos. You're going to have longer exposure times, 2 to 10 seconds in length, and you can set that in the camera. We'll talk a little bit about aperture and ISO as we look at the examples that we've shot in just a minute. One of the things that can really be key, though, for getting good sparkler pictures is to get your focus before the action starts. And when the light levels drop, it's important that somebody have a flashlight. And what they can do is they can hold this flashlight temporarily while you get focus, then switch the camera to manual focus and have that person with the sparkler stand where that you got focus. Said that in kind of a long roundabout way, but I think you get the idea. The other thing that you need is a tripod, because the camera, again, similar to the waterfall pictures, is going to be having these longer exposures, somewhere between 2 and 10 seconds, depending on your length of your sparkler. We're using kind of sissy sparklers right now. But let's take a look at shooting some pictures with actual sparklers with the T5i and the 18 to 55 lens. All right, so it is pretty much completely dark, and right now I got the T5i pointed at Manuel, and I am checking focus on him. I have a bright light on him right now to make sure he is in focus, and he is. So I've turned autofocus off so that it won't be trying to focus every time I'm taking the picture. Let me make sure that's true. Yep, focus is off. I'm shooting at 5 seconds, aperture 4.5 and ISO 200, and I'm about as wide as the lens will go, so I'm at about 18 millimeters for the focal length. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this light down, so it's going to get very dark. There's not going to be much to see here for about 5 seconds. But Manuel, you can go ahead and light your sparkler. And I'm going to wait till he's got it lit, and then I'm going to push the shutter. And now he can kind of do a circle with it or write his name with it. We'll do this one. Oop, there's go. 5 seconds. Nice circle. And I'm just going to let him keep playing and take another shot. And what you can really do to start to get fancy is you can really time this and say, okay, you got about 5 seconds, so go ahead and write your name. Or what we can do here in a second with the next round is extend our shutter speed by increasing our aperture, and that gives somebody a lot more time to maybe write a longer name. So we're going to do that here in just a second after we do just another shot at the 5 seconds. And so there we got some squiggles and some circles, and the one is done. So now let's change this. I'm going to just adjust this up to 10 seconds, and I am going to adjust my aperture, close it down to about 8. Okay, in those long exposures, the person with the sparkler always ends up really blurry. So one of your other options here is for somebody to move around them while they stand absolutely still, and that can offer some interesting looks as well.